Hey everyone, this is Jane with Barlow Herbal, and in this video I'm going to cover an ancient gorgeous tree called hawthorn. Now hawthorn has been used and loved for centuries, and there's a lot of ancient history and a lot of modern research that shows that not only does this plant provide a lot of beauty and a lot of mystique and magical history, but it has a lot of health benefits for human beings, which makes it one of the most perfect plants. There's so many things you can do with it. So this tree is native to Europe, Asia, and North America, and it's super, super hardy. So once it gets established and it's growing, then this tree has been known to live up to 700 years old. There are still ancient trees that are in meadows and in woodlands, and they're grown in hedgerows because they have these little thorns. So if you think about hawthorn, part of its name, this is actually something that people plant to protect their property from predators or from pests or something that might come in and maybe eat all their vegetables or eat their corn or whatever. In fact, you will find in places all around the world, especially in fields or meadows, there are very, very old hawthorn trees, because there is tradition and thought that if you cut down a hawthorn tree, it will bring bad luck to you and your family. So people typically do not cut down hawthorn trees. Besides that, they are beautiful, they are magical, and they provide so much health benefits and beauty and joy for human beings, because not only are they medicinal, but they are also edible. And it's been a food source for many cultures and many people for a long, long time. So there are several different species of the hawthorn tree, and I'm going to put a list of those beneath this video, because while there are different species, they grow in different places and they can provide different things like ornamental. The medicinal properties on most of these species is similar, which is amazing. Now, the parts of the plant that you use are not just the berries. The berries are what is most known, because in supplement form, you're going to find hawthorn berry in a capsule, you're going to find it in a tincture, you can even find it easily as a tea. The leaves and the flowers are also highly medicinal, and they're edible, like I said. Now, the berries are super, super fun because you can do some really cool things with them. As far as you can make them into a tea or a tincture, which is probably the most common, but you can also make them into food. In fact, I have a really good friend who makes a recipe where she takes hawthorn berries. She has a beautiful tree at the back side of her property. And what she does is she makes hawthorn berry honey. And the hawthorn berries are super high in pectin. So even when you make a tincture, it's best to either dry the berries out completely or to realize that you're going to have a thicker tincture if you use the berries when they're fresh. Now, the thing that I have heard, this is something I remember hearing from my dad as well, is that while the berries are edible, the seed inside them is not. And typically the hawthorn berry only has one seed, but there is a species where it has multiple seeds. But the most common is it has one seed right in the middle of the berry. So the seed is not edible. So if you're going to be eating hawthorn berries off of a tree, you should definitely know that when you eat the berry, you need to spit out the seed. Okay, so this is just a tip. I don't know what bad thing might happen. I think probably maybe just indigestion. There might be nausea. I don't think it's anything dangerous or mortal or, has a mortality thing to it. But I do think that it's something to pay attention to as far as if you have that little nugget of wisdom and knowledge, then spitting out the seed if you're going to eat hawthorn berries right off the tree is a good idea. And I know that when my friend makes her hawthorn honey, she'll boil the berries in water for a certain amount of time, and then she'll strain the berries through a strainer. And it literally takes her, depends on how big a batch she's making, but it might take her 40 to 60 minutes to actually just mash all of the hawthorn berries once they've been softened and cooked through a strainer, because you get rid of all of the stuff around it. You get rid of, the peel, you get rid of the stems, and you get rid of the seeds when you strain it, and you also push out all that goodness. And then you boil it down a little bit more. This is what my friend does. And then she actually adds it to honey, mixes it up, cooks it a little bit more so some of the juice is off so that you get a nice, beautiful consistency. And then you have this hawthorn berry honey, which even just talking about this, I'm going to connect with my friend. I'm filming this in September. So this is when the berries are best to be harvested. The leaves and the flowers, more in the spring, of course. But this is something that I am going to make myself a batch of hawthorn berry honey. And maybe in the future, I'll let you know how that went, because to me, this is one of those serious gifts of Mother Nature, because not only do you get the deliciousness of the hawthorn berries, but you get all of the health benefits as well. And there's nothing like making your own, not just food to consume on a medicinal level, but your own herbal medicine, your own herbal remedies. Hawthorn has, like I said, a ton of health benefits. And this is not just from historic use. This is now modern research, as usual, is starting to catch up. And there are some human trials on things like heart health, blood pressure, digestion. It's got a ton of antioxidant properties. So there is modern research and clinical studies in human beings that is showing and proving that a lot of these things that the old witches knew, and the old herbalists and the people who had their apothecaries and the indigenous people who used all of these things have known about for a long time. Because back in the day, before we had all of our modern research, this was trial and error. You think about how modern humans would discover something was poison, is it would usually take someone out, or it might make them seriously ill. And all of this wisdom has been recorded and documented, and also a lot of it has been passed down word of mouth or just learning from generation to generation. And to me, this is a beautiful time to be alive, because you can now get the modern research and the modern technology that we have to do the testing and all the stuff that shows what it does. And then even before it goes into a human being, if you want to know the seeds are poisonous, you can actually test that. So to me, this is honestly the most beautiful time to be here, because as well, the frequencies, the energies, the rise of consciousness of humanity, we are in the absolute beautiful middle of all of this. And it feels like, in a way to me, like we're in the center of a storm, right? But if we can be the quiet in the center and take advantage of the way these frequencies are happening, then it is a really beautiful, beautiful thing, because it just keeps you steady. And to me, it's like taking care of this physical avatar, this body that we have, while we are walking through these pivotal changes for humanity, is the most important thing we can do. Because if we don't have to get stuck in our modern medical system, that is a really amazing thing. And we have the ability to tune in, to heal ourselves, to take advantage of all of the gifts of Mother Nature and our own intuitive body and its ability to heal. I believe that we have the ability to create miraculous healing simply by our belief systems and our mindset. And then we do know we are biology. We have to take care of this physical vessel, and miracles can happen. So I'm going to go over this. I wrote a few notes quickly. I've already mentioned a few of the health benefits of hawthorn, but I'm going to mention right here too, it's not just the flowers, the leaves, and the berries, but the bark of the hawthorn tree has also been used in the past. It's not used in modern times, but it has been used in the past for fevers and for digestion, the actual bark of the hawthorn tree. So if you think about that, the only part of the tree that I didn't mention is the roots. And of course, the roots probably contain the exact same properties as the bark does. And this was also something that they would take when they had a hawthorn bark, and then they would use it to sage things, as you will. So, but a lot of people do not cut down hawthorn trees. I mean, this is something that generations of people Even if you're not a woo-woo person at all, this would make sense to you, because if you see a hawthorn tree standing out in the middle of a meadow or the middle of a field, especially if it's a field like some type of like corn or wheat or barley or whatever, a lot of these meadows across all of Europe, Asia, and North America, there are so many lone hawthorn trees that are old, that are beautiful, and that are still living and growing, because I believe they bring magic and good luck, which is all part of the whole experience, right? So I'm going to go over these health benefits really quick. And I wrote down some cool notes about what each of these do. So one of the things that hawthorn, and this is not just the berries, but the leaves and the flowers, even though the berries are the most used, this is what it's very well known for. And this is cardiovascular health, heart health. Hawthorn loves your heart. Now, the thing about hawthorn is that this is a supportive herb. This is an herb that supports healthy blood vessels. It's a vasodilator, and it has a special affinity for heart health. And like I said, as a supportive herb. So I would just say, if you're a person who's on, maybe some heart medications, and your desire to get off them is high, this is not one of those herbs that you just can start taking and just go off any meds. In fact, I never suggest that. I'm not a doctor. Anything I share is not meant to be medical advice. This is meant to just entertain and educate you and help you understand the power of Mother Nature, especially when it comes to something like this. In fact, that's the thing. Hawthorn is supportive, and not just for cardiovascular, but really well known for blood pressure and lowering the bad cholesterol, the LDL. And there's a whole big thing that's been buzzing around on the information highways for the last couple of years about cholesterol. That's probably a whole nother video, a whole nother topic, but it has been known and shown to lower bad cholesterol. It's also extremely high in antioxidants, which for me, that means anti-aging. That means, going after free radicals, all the stuff that antioxidants do. And if you look at every single plant out there, most of them have antioxidant properties. And that's another thing I love about hawthorn, is it's really good for digestion. So this is something that, for me, taking care of my digestion has always been top of the list. And I think that with all the things that come at us as modern humans, things that we maybe ate as children, and maybe the things we still eat as adults or feed our children, they aren't the best ingredients. They're highly processed, they're full of chemicals, they're full of dyes, and they're full of things that keep us stuck, not just in poor health, but in lower vibrational frequencies. And it keeps our emotional state low. And this is where things like hawthorn are really super fun, because you can not only make a hawthorn honey, you can make hawthorn jellies and jams. In fact, I know people who make hawthorn ketchup. And that is actually a favorite, especially if you have a hawthorn tree that you have in your yard, or maybe your neighbor doesn't utilize their hawthorn. And this would be a good reason to meet your neighbor if you haven't, and see if they're interested in letting you share their hawthorn tree, all the benefits. And most are, because there's a lot of stuff that people who have these medicinal plants in their yard might not realize. So herbalists prescribe hawthorn for nervous tension, restlessness, and mild anxiety. The calming effect may come from its ability to support circulation and calm the nervous system. All that being said about the amazing, beautiful, in my opinion, magical hawthorn tree, there are so many things that you can do with this tree besides just admire its beauty. You can consume it, you can use it for medicinal properties, and it's just one of those things that's like, until you really start realizing that this right here that I've been admiring, because it puts out the most amazing flowers in the spring, because it's a pollinator. Like all of your beautiful pollinators, butterflies and bees, and I think they're called hoverflies. Those are all pollinators that are attracted to the blossoms, which go crazy in the spring. So I'd love to know what you think about hawthorn. Do you love it as much as I do? This is one of those things to put on your radar and learn about and start to utilize in your life. So thanks for tuning in today, guys, and we'll see you next time.